When the spacecraft appeared over the city, my first thought was, at least it's not an earthquake. I get paid to imagine disasters for a living. My title is Urban Resilience Coordinator, which is a fancy way of saying, if something bad happens to the city, it's partly my fault if we weren't ready. Floods, power grid failures, chemical spills. I've written contingency plans for all of them. There was no plan for a silent object hanging 300 meters over downtown, casting a shadow that didn't obey the sun. I was in the Emergency Operations Center the morning it appeared, drinking burnt coffee and pretending the budget spreadsheet would eventually make sense. Someone shouted my name. Then someone else said, "You need to see this." The first photo looked fake, like bad CGI. A smooth, dark shape, too symmetrical to be a rock, too organic to be a machine, floating above the financial district. No engines, no lights, no visible support, just there. It made no sound, the police helicopter pilot said over the radio. We were passing by and it just phased in. Reports flooded in, calls of panic, awe, cell phone videos. The mayor wanted to know if it was a drone, a weapon, a hoax. I didn't have an answer. I just kept staring at the live feed. The object didn't move, didn't rotate, didn't react to wind. It simply hung there, a black egg cracked into the sky. My job was to ask, what do we do if this gets worse? If it falls? If it explodes? If people riot? What I didn't account for was, what do we do if it never does anything at all? By day 3, the panic turned into something else. People went back to work, sort of. Traffic snarled, then normalized. News cycles spun wild theories. Aliens, foreign tech, experimental art. The military cordoned off a perimeter but did not shoot it down. It's not emitting radiation. No known signals, no changes in pressure. It's just there, one of the scientists said at our briefing. Objects don't just float in the air, I said. This one does. I started having trouble sleeping that night, not because of fear, because of the quiet. All our simulations always assumed impact, some effect, some explosion, some tangible event. This was an unended sentence, hanging over millions of heads. After 5 days, the first reports about the dreams came in. At first, they were easy to dismiss. People saying they dreamed of standing under the spacecraft, looking up at it. Ordinary anxiety, we thought. A city shares a trauma. The subconscious responds. Then the details started lining up. Different neighborhoods, different ages, same phrase. It was whispering to me. A woman in her 60s, a teenager, a bus driver, a paramedic who swore he never remembered dreams at all. They all used the same words, even if they didn't realize it. Not in English, not a voice, but I knew it was a whisper. We brought in neurologists, psychiatrists, people who used words like contagious narrative phenomena. The mayor wanted to know if this was going to lead to mass hysteria. Did they say what it whispered? I asked. The neurologist frowned. Not exactly. They say it didn't give information. It gave direction, a feeling. What feeling? The neurologist hesitated. Come closer. I wasn't one of the dreamers, at least not at first. That made me useful. I could stand in front of cameras and talk about calm, about infrastructure, about how we were monitoring the situation and had evacuation routes ready. I could watch interviews and read reports and convince myself this was just a strange, large-scale psychological response to an impossible sight. On day 11, that changed. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. in my apartment with my heart pounding and the distinct, nauseating sensation that gravity didn't know which way was down. The room was dark, but I could see something enormous through the ceiling. Not with my eyes exactly, with a sense that sat behind them. I was standing in the plaza beneath the spacecraft, even though my body was miles away, in bed. The object hung above me, silent. All around me, others stood in the plaza too. Hundreds, thousands of shadowy figures. Some of them looked familiar from television. Some were strangers. Some were crying. None of us spoke. The spacecraft did, not in words, in structure. A pattern unfolded in my mind, like math, but felt, not calculated. It didn't say, "Come closer." It said, "You are already here." Then I woke up. The clock said 3:18. The next morning, the briefing room felt smaller. More people were admitting they'd had the dreams. The content is consistent, the neurologist said. The sensation of being beneath the object, the awareness of others present, the communication. Is it harmful? The mayor asked. Brains show unusual activity during the dream, but no permanent damage that we can detect. Some people feel a lingering pull to physically go to the plaza, but they can resist so far. The mayor looked at me. We can't have thousands of people running to stand under this thing every night. We need to recommend something. I was only half listening, because I could still feel it, like a seed behind my thoughts. You are already here. I realized, with a chill, that it wasn't inviting our bodies. It was inviting our attention, our minds. Crowds started forming under the spacecraft anyway. Not all at once, not in a stampede, just a slow trickle each day, curious, then reverent, then obsessive. Some people lost jobs. Some stopped going home. They'd stand there for hours, looking up, waiting. Security tried to hold them back, then tried to install barricades. The barriers didn't work. People stood at the edges instead. It didn't seem to matter how close they were physically. We developed guidelines: limit exposure, treat it like an addictive substance, avoid staring too long. It felt ridiculous. How do you tell millions of people not to think about the thing hanging over their city? That night the dream came back. This time, the plaza was more crowded. The shadows had faces now, people I recognized from the briefings, from the news, from the crowd footage. The sense of presence from the spacecraft was stronger. Still no words, just that unfolding pattern, like a hand flipping through pages of a book, written in physics instead of ink. I felt it trying things, testing, not our language, not our culture, our limits. How much weight can a mind carry before it breaks? I stopped sleeping. The other planners did too. We told people we were working around the clock, but really, we were avoiding being present anywhere it could find us. During the day, my job became less about planning for disaster and more about managing the pool. We set up counseling, meditation apps, noise generators, anything to drown out the subtle, constant sense that just thinking about the object helped it learn. I started noticing patterns. People who spent more time under it reported fewer nightmares, but more personality changes, numbness, detachment, a strange serenity. People who avoided it had worse dreams, but remained themselves. The spacecraft wasn't forcing anything. It was offering a trade. Let it in a little, and the fear goes away. At a cost. On day 23, the military pushed for action. If we can't communicate with it, we can't predict it, one general said. If we can't predict it, we have to treat it as a threat. How would you neutralize it? I asked. He didn't answer, because we all knew the truth. No one wanted to be the one to shoot at something that could reach into our dreams without effort. Besides, another official said quietly, "What if this is communication? Just not in a way we recognize." "What if we're the ones being unreasonable?" someone else muttered. "We were planners without a future model." Every timeline I tried to imagine fizzled into static after one consistent factor. The object stays. It never needs to move to win. The last dream I had, I think it was the last, was different. No plaza, no crowd. Just me and the object, hovering in a dark space with no ground and no sky. I knew, without knowing how, that it had singled me out because of my role. Because I was someone who tried to map out systems, to anticipate responses. It didn't appear any different, but the pattern it showed me was terrifyingly clear. I saw the city from above, lights like neurons. I saw people as tiny flashes, connecting and disconnecting. And I saw threads, lines of attention, thought, focus, all angled upward, converging on the object. It wasn't feeding on us, not exactly. It was mapping us. "We are learning your cognitive architecture," something inside me translated. "We observe how you stabilize around anomalies, how you rewrite fear into routine, how you choose to forget what burdens your model of reality." It showed me, in a single dizzying pulse, futures where we adapted to it, where kids grew up under its shadow like it was just another building, where human culture twisted around the presence of an object that watched and waited and occasionally whispered. Then it showed me one more thing. Other cities, other worlds, other skies, other objects, all quiet, all patient. "We do not invade," the feeling said. "We arrive, you do the rest." I woke with tears on my face, not from fear, from a kind of grief I didn't have language for. The spacecraft is still up there as I tell this. It hasn't moved. It hasn't fired anything. It hasn't attacked. People don't talk about the dreams as much now. It's old news. Life has found its shape around the impossible. We did what we always do. We made the anomaly part of the background. That's what scares me most, not the object itself, but how quickly we got used to being observed, measured, modeled. I still go to the operations center. I still write plans, floods, fires, pandemics, things we can quantify. On clear days, its shadow cuts across my office window. I try not to look, because every time I do, I feel that presence pressed just a bit closer, curious and endless. It doesn't need to conquer us. It just needs us to keep looking up.